Oh, that's just the nice weapon. Keep direct.
Only one of us has to wear a jacket.
We would excuse you.
No. We paid way too much money for that air conditioner.
I just really think that's a beautiful time.
Oh, thank you.
Process.
I'm surprised you haven't seen it before. It's one of the ones that keep in rotation. So anyone get washed away in the storm last night? Was the first time Zeke had seen hail. Yeah.
What did he think of that?
It was confusing. Why is there ice falling from the sky? It was something else.
How big was your hail?
Between kind and quarter size. Oh.
Just got branches down. Big branches down. Sherry Gardner.
The wind was. My Zeke has a little footstool. You know, he had, if you can imagine our backyard, the laundry line, the upright that's furthest south here, the wind was so fierce it blew that little footstool all the way to the edge of the fence over here. Little low plastic footstool. I was shocked. Yeah, it was.
Maybe it was just the wind was moving.
Wind was coming hard out of the southwest.
Okay.
There was one sustained gust that lasted maybe 30 seconds or maybe most of the day were here. People storming boxing match.
Yeah. Interrupting the Olympics too. I think they're serious.
Yeah, not. Adults talk about that punching.
I'll never understand that. Wrestling, I get it. Boxing,
Well, you're not supposed to let them punch you in the face. You're gonna, okay, your turn. Right here. Well, you may feel that way about that, but no one's ever been able to adequately explain it. You know what happens when you get played country something. Get out of jail, get a job again. Have you to hear
but he does play across all the borders.
Yeah, Jay Rogers was good when he was back in the 60s when he was doing songs like I Just Stopped In to See What Condition My Condition was in. That's because he was a rock singer before he went country.
Oh, yeah, well, before he was that, he was in Serendipity. That was really, I like, elevator music. And then he switched way over and did Kenny Rogers and what's his he switched right over. Find time to really things, and I think that's probably. Some of these later stuff, you get some weird. Okay. They were okay.
Don't expect it every week.
No.
This came from Jan. Yeah.
Oh, I know, but I was just reading the things about salvation unto us is coming, and I thought, yeah.
It's a very excellent addition.
And I will do it occasionally.
That is fine. And when it isn't in there, it means Jan didn't do it. And so today we're skipping the chapter. We are skipping chapter 20. I will summarize it briefly. The reason we're skipping it is because we've seen this one before. Maybe not with the particular thing involved, but it's essentially the exact same thing, just many years later. Abraham goes to the land of the Philistines. And, well, he's in this foreign land. He takes a look at his wife and says, "Wife, you are in this land my sister." So King Abimelech, which is an interesting name because it literally means my father the king, takes Sarah to be his wife, and all sorts of bad stuff starts happening to his family because he has taken Sarah to be his wife. However, he did it. Consummate the relationship. One day, God appears to Abimelech in a dream and says, "This guy, this wife you've taken, he's actually Abraham's wife." And Abimelech says, "Well, how was I supposed to know that?" "Yeah, I know, your hands are clean. So I haven't let you come together with her. So you need to fix this." So Abimelech goes to Abraham and scolds him pretty good. And Abraham says, "Well, she is my half sister, but she's also my wife." The man does not cover himself in the Lord. So Abimelech sends him on his way. And that'll be important as we get later on in chapter 21. The first question. Abraham is saying Sarah's his sister again. Again, God protects him. Why? Yes. What does that tell us about God? Abraham, I saw some of you giving me quizzical looks, shaking your head. Abraham is not covering himself in glory here. We talked a lot about Abraham's faith, and we're going to see that quite clearly next week. But also, Abraham, at least when it comes to his wife, had a few things that were, shall we say, suboptimal. And that's gonna come up again in chapter 21. But God works with him because his promise is more important than the people promising. It isn't contingent on their actions. It isn't contingent on their faith. And that's important for us because with the possible exception of Mildred, no one here is perfect. Not even a smile. Oh.
The exception of you,
Possible.
possible exception of you, no one is perfect.
There, that's the reaction.
We hear fables in the church.
There we go. That's a reaction. That was fun. So, if God made his promises contingent on the faithful work of his people, we'd all be lost. God's promises do not hang on our obedience. God's promises stand, whether we deserve them or not. And let's face it, we hit the or not bucket a lot more than we hit the deserving bucket. Anyway, chapter 21. Who wants to start reading? Okay.
The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised. Sarah conceived and gave birth to a son. At that time, God had announced Abraham named his son the son whom Sarah had born to him, Isaac. Abraham circumcised his son Isaac in his age of his old, as God had commanded. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born.
Sarah said, God has made me laugh. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. She said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children, yet I have born a son for him in his old
Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was born. Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian son of Hagar, Abraham, laughing at Isaac. Therefore she said to Abraham, throw out this slave girl and her son, for the son of the slave will not be fair with my son Isaac.
very distressed because God said to Abraham, do not be so distressed because listen to what God says to you. I will also make the son of the because he is two of his offspring. Abraham God heard the voice, and God called to Abraham from heaven and said to her, what is wrong with Abraham? Do not be afraid, for God has heard the voice, her. Right where he is. Get up, help the boy up. Because I will meet you.
God opened her eyes and she saw a well with water. She went, filled the skin with water, and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the wilderness and became an archer. He lived in the wilderness of Paran. His mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt.
At that time, Abimelech and Michael, the commander of his army, spoke to Abraham. He said, God is with you. Now swear to me here by God, that you will not deal treacherously with my grandson. But just as I have been kind to you, you shall do the same for me and for the land in which you have given you. Abraham said, I swear.
Abraham complained to Abimelech because of the well which Abimelech's servants had seized violently. Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this. He did not tell me, and I did not hear about it.
Abraham took sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech. 2 of them made 3. Abraham set aside 7 new lambs for the farm. Abimelech said to Abraham, why have you set these 7 new lambs by themselves?
And you shall send these 7 men.
Timorous.
Treating the sheep, and they proclaim nothing like each other body.
Okay, so before we jump into the questions I prepared, anything jump out at you? No? Okay. So why was there friction between Sarah and Hagar again? Yeah. Now, any idea roughly how old Ishmael was in this? 10, 13, somewhere in there. How old was Isaac? Year, maybe 2, 3 at the most. You're the only other man in here, so I didn't speak correctly. Having a couple of wives. I know you've been thinking about it. It's just not going to work out. So why did God promise to bless Ishmael? Why?
Because Abraham's son, he's still with Abraham's son.
Huh.
That's what he said. He says, for the son of this slave, he will not be heir with my son Isaac, but later he says, come back home to make the son of the king. He's your offspring.
What nation does he lead?
The Ishmaelites. Any idea who those are in modern times? Not so much Iran, but Iraq, what else? A group of people people widely known as Arabs. Yep. Who do the Arabs fight a lot? Don't say everybody. Jews. Where are the Jews descended from? Where are the Arabs descended from? Israel. Yeah. You think your family has problems? As far as I'm aware, none of your all's family declared war on each other. Do you really need to look around for confirmation on that? Well, I don't think so, but
And that does happen. Declare war on each other.
well, what's interesting about that is it's less common today than it used to be. King of England was German at one point. French, no. They marry into to cement relationships. And sometimes that cement stays well. Is one of the hope. But we haven't really gotten to the answer. Why did God bless Ishmael? God had never made promises regarding the offspring of Hagar and Abraham, other than to say, because he's your son, I will bless him. Why did God make those promises?
States, and he's also
Yes. Later on, we see something interesting. Who comes and talks to Hagar? The pre-incarnate Christ. Can you think of a time in Scripture where the pre-incarnate Christ talks to unbelievers? Now, it happened all the time. He was in the flesh here on earth. That was a massive part of his ministry. But in the Old Testament, can you think of a time where the angel of the Lord ever spoke to an unbeliever? Balaam's donkey was and in that the article used before. You have listed every example of it. It doesn't happen. It simply does not happen. So the only conclusion we can make is that both Abraham, Ishmael, and Hagar were believers. Not always portrayed as the greatest people in the world, but they were believers. So God was blessing those who are his own, even if there was a little bit of sketchiness to how they became. What can you tell about Hagar from the way she acted when she thought it was the end? Now, you gotta understand what's happening. Abraham gave Hagar and Ishmael some bread and some water to that. You ever been hot? Ever been outside on a hot day? You lose water pretty quick. Then if you have water, you're gonna die. Hagar did this, and when it appeared that death was at hand, what did Hagar do?
She would be right there with the child. She would.
Well, why was Hagar acting? What was she convinced? Not just him. She was convinced she was going to have. And it's maybe hours after the boy did. She didn't want to be there. Because she didn't want the last thing she noticed, the last thing that came to her attention, the death of her son. He was preparing them both. People. Notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say that she found a nice shades on herself. From all appearances, given the level of detail of this account, she hid Ishmael under a bush. On the desert, there's hardly a plethora of bushes. So, what does that? It doesn't say Hagar did her someone. What would she do? Go to the baby. That is a charitable interpretation. It's another interpretation. You're honoring the son, as opposed to saying the mission. What is it? Conflict causes a number of things to happen, especially in accelerated loss of moisture.
Disorientation.
What?
Want to die first?
That's my guess.
That just seems contrary to a mother's instinct.
People in desperate situations tend to be desperate. And they tend to reveal a bit about their character. And they make those desperate moves. The Bible is not the history of every glorious action every person ever does. I'm not going to sit here and judge Hagar because I've never been in that situation. But it does seem that she was trying to set up the natural order of everything is about the child. So what got it?
The boy's voice.
Isn't that it?
That is very nice.
Now, if we're to assume they both were believers, what can we assume about the actions they were making?
The boy was praying.
The boy was certainly praying. Does not seem that Hagar was. Otherwise, I would say I had heard Sure. Boy, great. Gathered. And all of a sudden there was a love. Was this simply something that was kept from Hagar's notice till the appropriate time, or did God miraculously put a well there? We don't know. But she filled up the water skin. They went on their way. And they need. Now Hagar got the wife from Egypt. Any idea why? Hagar got a wife for her son from Egypt. Any idea why? Because she had been thrown out. She had nothing else. So she went to the people she knew, she understood, and made sure her son was taken care of. So, anything further on the Hagar and Ishmael part? I think they will have come to Abraham. No. We'll talk about that in a second.
Abraham's favored by God. He wanted something.
Does it say that?
She favored by God, that you will not feel treacherously. And
Is it bad? It could be that he was just worried about Abraham. And I think there's something else in it. Think of it, the next day. Why bring up the son with the grandson if there's no transfer of power about to take place? Countries are most vulnerable, especially monarchies, when there is a transfer of power. Because if people have pledged their loyalty to the crown, but mainly to the person who's wearing the crown. And when there is a transfer of power from father to son, some people can be persuaded you don't need this anymore. Start discussing monarchies and he has to go. And notice who Abimelech brings with him. Why? Abimelech could be bringing his most trusted advice. So let's put it this way. If you have some pesky neighbors, and you need to have a discussion with them, where are you bringing with you? Money. For me. Sorry. Who you bring? The one who could rain endless amounts of pain down on you if you don't listen. Which body might be able to do, I've seen it with garbage tools. But between the two of us, I'm a bit more of an intimidating presence. Do you agree with that? If bringing the commander of your army to a negotiation is implying, look, if this doesn't go the way I want it to, it's really not going to go the way I want it to. And it's going to be painful for both of us. So what was Abraham's complaint?
That Abimelech's servants had things of wealth, items,
Yes.
and Abimelech.
Right. Apparently Abimelech knew there was some cause of friction between the two of them. That's why he wanted a little bit of a show of force here. And Abraham told him what this friction was all about. He told him that, look, your people have stolen the wealth. Now that's a big deal. Because Israel's a bit of an arid place. And if you don't have enough water to keep a woman and child alive there, keeping flocks alive is even harder. And so, fights over water were not terribly uncommon. And this particular fight has not gone Abraham's way. And so, Abimelech came and said, look, we need peace. And Abraham said, you want peace? Fix this. So what did Abimelech do about it? Indeed, if they made a treaty, if Abimelech gave Abraham the well back, what does that mean? In simple terms, it means he believed Abraham, right? Why is that fascinating? The first interaction we see between these two men. Abraham lies to him. Well, this is my sister. And yet Abimelech believes in him. One of three things happened. Either Abimelech didn't feel like going to war with the second most powerful military force in the region over a well. Or Abimelech believed that Abraham would deal with him honestly. Or God clouded Abimelech's otherwise human judgment. Well, what's the saying? Fool me once. You. Fool me twice. It may be of more recent vintage than this, but his sentiment has been there since the beginning of time. So which one do you suppose happened? I'm asking for your conjecture. Did Abimelech believe him? Did Abimelech not win war? Or did God influence Abimelech's thinking? Nancy, maybe it's the fact that I lived for 6 years in a communist country, but you and I are thinking the same. Because you're such an ardent communist, that's just a joke. I think it's a combination of two. If you're the ruler of the Philistines, one well isn't worth the war. Not when you can negotiate a price. Also, I don't know if you know this, but men tend to be prideful. Have you ever seen that before? I detected just a hint of sarcasm in that. Just the smallest bit. Yeah, and you're right.
Not just men.
No, women are perfect. Women have never been anything. That, what?
That's the way to put it too.
Well, there is a lot of that in there, isn't there? So yeah. But God worked it out so that his guy doesn't go to war with this other guy. Okay. So how did they seal their agreement not to go to war? No? And agree. One other thing. That way. You're too far. Ah. Yes. 7 years.
That's interesting that you will accept these lands as my testimony. You have to give me some lands to say to acquiesce to my.
Absolutely. And then finally, what's remarkable about this event? There's a lot, and we've remarked on a lot of it. But who was Abimelech the king of? What do you know about Philistines? One of two things is true. And one of our professors at the seminary, perhaps you've heard his name, perhaps not, John Brew, is widely regarded to be the foremost expert on the Philistines in the world. Like when the History Channel does stuff about the Bible, he's their Philistines. His past research tells him that these Philistines, while they may share a name with David's Philistines, are two different groups of people. He thinks that these Philistines were immigrants from the Greek Isles, whereas the Philistines of David's day were conquerors who conquered these Philistines and took the name to give us the rule. Now again, this is a level of history I'm not going to speak of. But I know John Brew. And I know that if he opens his mouth and says something, he will usually put money. I believe so. Closest I've ever come to a nutty professor. You can tell the days when he got up before his wife, because he'll come to school in a few different shoes. But it's because his mind is occupied with something far more important than what shoes he wears. Anyway, anything further on this? All right.
Very interesting chapter.
There's a new baby.